Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Aliens on the Border. I'm not sure if I'm going to be doing this one alone or not. We may or may not have a special guest co-host filling in for Roger. And in any case, as the title implies, we're talking about something a little bit more serious than usual today, or not than usual, but we're flipping it back over to the serious content. But in any case, before we dive into the Chauvin verdict, which it's already been out for like a week or so we'll get into that in just a second. Of course, make sure you follow us on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube. We're starting to do our streams on both YouTube and Facebook. We'll probably be migrating a little bit more towards YouTube for everyone out there that doesn't have a Facebook that has been wanting to tune in. So keep your eyes peeled to that. This is streaming to both at the same time. But in any case, follow us on Instagram, follow us on Facebook, follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, everything. Leave 5-star reviews, share it with your friends, share it with your family, share it with your loved ones, share it with people you don't fucking know. Make sure you also follow On the Streets of Laredo, Beans, Brews, and Buds, The Lockdown Listens, and That's Just My Opinion, all of which are part of the Aliens on the Border podcast network. But in any case, let me ride y'all in with this intro, and then we'll dive into the Derek Chauvin verdict.
Aliens on the border. Aliens on the border.
Oh shit! So I just got news. It looks like I'll be by myself for this one. Interesting. Let's see how this goes. But in any case, so about a week ago, a little bit more than a week ago, I think. I want to say on 420 was when the verdict was delivered, and as we all very well know, former officer Derek Chauvin was convicted of all charges. So second degree murder, third degree murder, and second degree manslaughter, which is fucking insane. And, likely is the outcome that everybody wanted. I don't know. I paid attention to the beginning of the trial, then fell off for a bit because I was like, okay, whatever. I felt like the evidence that was presented had kind of already established perhaps reasonable doubt. I'm not entirely sure that it did, apparently. So the crazy part is that the jury unanimously found him guilty on all counts. That's pretty fucking insane. And the closing argument that was made by the defense was essentially what I felt that they were able to achieve, to where they didn't disprove that he he meaning former officer Derek Chauvin caused the death per se, but they definitely established at least evidence for what I would have considered reasonable doubt, at least, especially with some of the bigger testimonies where they introduced the other video angle that showed that he wasn't necessarily on George Floyd's neck for the entire length of the video, and he was perhaps in between his shoulder blades, even, which isn't acceptable according to Minneapolis police. Isn't acceptable practice in terms of like detaining somebody. Also, you had one of the expert witnesses as well claimed that he could have used more deadlier force at that, even, and that kind of destroyed the argument. Therefore, he used unnecessary force when they, in and of itself, like one of the prosecution's witnesses stated that he could have used deadlier force if necessary, but he didn't, which is pretty fucking interesting. And then one of the things that we talked about, which I think may or may not skew the verdict in one way or another, is essentially how public or how visual it was. Like it was definitely the case, at least, or the biggest case probably that I can remember. In my short life here. It's that I'm fucking gonna be 28 this year, so in 28 years, this has probably been the most viewed trial since probably like the whole OJ Simpson trial back in the 90s or whatever. And I think that it's fair to say that there's likely some pressure that the jury felt from outside forces, maybe, especially with politicians and other prominent individuals kind of calling for violence, or not necessarily. Yeah, I mean, some flat out did call for violence, and nothing really happened to that. There was no serious repercussions to those people that did. And I'm only saying this because I've said this several times before, and I don't stand, excuse me, I don't stand against the verdict even per se, or having justice for George Floyd, because unfortunately his death was just untimely, right? Tragic, definitely, at the very very least tragic. But I think that it's dangerous to allow the rule of mob to really control factors like this. And some, I'll look for the article in a second here just to throw it up for everyone that's watching. But there was an interview where some of the people that were part of the jury did express some form of stress in terms of like fear for having the Black Lives Matter movement or Antifa even, target them if they were to somehow deliver the verdict that wasn't wanted by the public, if you will. I'm really, really, really surprised, based on everything that I was able to see from what I did pay attention to, especially when they got that. I can't even remember who the fuck the expert witness was, but when they brought that dude in to essentially say that him using his knee on his back or on his neck, whatever you want to believe, the was less force than he may have had to use. That kind of just destroyed the whole argument of he was using unnecessary force. It's pretty fucking crazy. I don't know. A lot of crazy shit has happened from the time of George Floyd's death all the way up until the verdict was issued, and I think it's fair to address all of it. Not in sense of like it affected the verdict, it may have, but just things that are significant events that are in history. Like we're living in a weird time where historical events are taking place like one right after the other. You know what I mean? Like not even just the pandemic, but the civil unrest that has been sweeping the country since the death of George Floyd, and some might say even before that. I don't know. It's a lot of the fucking storming of the Capitol. Even if it was just like half baked and a group of dumb people that weren't necessarily going to accomplish anything, nevertheless, like a group of people united to storm the Capitol. And then you also have the Time magazine article that comes out soon thereafter, where they essentially state that a cabal of secret and super rich people came together and changed the rules of the election to make sure that they protected democracy and had the proper outcome, or whatever that means, right? And and it's just an interesting time to be alive, I would say. A lot of the things that may at one point in time may have been conspiratorial kind of just turned out to be fact, rather. And I think, even though I wanted to talk a little bit about the verdict and what my thoughts on that, I guess I want to just kind of drive the point home to where I think that the idea of perhaps even a mistrial can be something to be considered, especially when you have individuals that were part of the jury express their concern with having some sort of a reaction if they handed the quote unquote, unfavorable verdict. I think that, like, that's definitely at the bare minimum like fair grounds to look at. And then you do have, as I mentioned, some politicians, and I forget the name of which person, but it's someone in the legislature, tweets out, make sure that something to the effect of "We will riot if you don't convict them" or something like that, something of that nature. And nobody batted a fucking eye, and that's crazy. Because we just came off of the whole, hey, Donald Trump told people to rush the Capitol, so he's a fucking sowing sedition or whatever. And yet, when there's literal words that are telling the people to hit the streets if the verdict is not something that is favorable to their their side of the story, then how's that not the same thing? How does that just fly under the radar? I don't know. And I just think again that it should be fair to see both sides. And if you want to apply one thing to, if you want to categorize people that fucking rushed the Capitol as insurrectionists and treat them as terrorists, why not do the same thing to the people that have been burning down cities and across the country since the incident with George Floyd almost a year ago now, or if not a year ago now, more than a year ago, like a year and a couple of months now, or a year and a month. But yeah, like why the double standard? You know, it almost feels as if like the narrative is being driven by one side of the aisle, so to speak. The one side of the aisle being predominantly like the left. And you may or may not agree to what I'm saying at the moment, but the fact of the matter remains that predominantly like the sources of news or the mainstream news at the bare minimum, there's far more that are left leaning in terms of ideology that are right leaning. Is that a good thing? Who knows? Because it's not, I don't necessarily think that it's good that we minimize the right's voice. And then you also have huge social media platforms that definitely, they've shown to have an impact in our electoral process or in our democratic process at however you want, whatever you want to call it. But if they minimize the voices on one aisle and highlight the other side to try and drive like a specific narrative or champion what they believe is like the proper way of life or whatever, is that any different than having like a dictator tell you that what to do? And I'm not equating the left to any historical dictator. I'm just saying like their mind frame may be more authoritative than you believe. And if you can't see that, then maybe you need to take like a couple of steps back, perhaps. And I'm not claiming that I'm right or that I know the answers. I definitely fucking don't. I just definitely believe that we should have the ability to have genuine conversations where we're going to risk offending one another if we're trying to tackle like the biggest things. We should all die and start over, homie. It's the only way. I mean, fuck yeah, a huge reset button. Just let's smash that asteroid into the planet and see what the fuck happens when it starts all over. But no, in any case, I just don't think that it's smart for us to believe that the people that are canceling one side or the other know better than we do when they've proven continuously that they definitely don't. The government has essentially failed its people several times before. And if you don't see what I mean, then you can go back to 2008, right? Where essentially you had the government bail out the largest countries, or excuse me, the largest companies that were deemed too big to fail, turning money back over to CEOs where that didn't really go to the workers at all, just created larger bonuses for the highest of these companies, the upper echelon of these companies. And then you also have these same people that kind of fumbled the economy and created the situation that happened in 2008 go back into government themselves and become the watchdogs, right? But like, who the fuck are they really watching? Who watches the Watchmen, right? The concept of that comes out. And far and wide, both sides of the aisle, I think, have just shown a tremendous, I want to say, what the fuck is the proper term I'm looking for here? Tremendous amount of complete and utter indifference to its constituents, whether that be a Republican, whether it be a Democrat. I think that we very clearly see the continuance of the permanent state or the shadow government, if you will. What are the things that never change, the things that automatically always get signed into law, things that always favor the larger companies, things where perpetuate war, wherever it may be, all under the guise of what? We're protecting freedom. We're the world police. We're in America, so we have to be right. If not, somebody else is going to fill in that power void. I don't know. I genuinely feel that it is an awakening that can end up in one of two ways. We can completely destroy each other if we don't know how to come to a genuine understanding of one another, or we can find that middle ground and move forward and perhaps work on restructuring our government, our lives in such a way to where it creates something meaningful. I don't know if a utopia could ever be reached, right? Because the means by which you can come across or the means by which you can construct a fucking utopia is sometimes sought after through tyrannical means. Oh, look, we have a sick Kenzie in the house. Let's see what this motherfucker's got to say. What's up, dude? Mortal
Hey
Kombat
man,
raid. I'm playing.
still feeling a little weird, but I'm good. I'm good. I was getting bored of being at home,
I
and
was
not
getting bored
doing
of hearing
shit.
myself talk.
Of what?
I was getting bored of hearing myself talk.
Oh, cool. I'm glad I joined in on time then.
Yeah,
Yeah. So hi, what's going on? I what was I gonna say? Uh, I was feeling kind of shitty earlier. I think I got some food poisoning. Um,
I think
at
there was a bug, bro. TBH.
Yeah, well, that's what I was saying. Like I had told you a while back that there was like a bug going around for a bit because you and your girl got it right.
Yeah, man. So when we recorded the
How do
Mortal
I
Kombat,
sound? By the way, this is the first time I'm using this mixer.
you sound normal. You
All right,
sound good.
cool.
You sound gravy. So yesterday, or not yesterday, Monday, when we were recording the Mortal Kombat episode, Marlene, my girlfriend, she was like dying in the background in our room. Like she told me afterwards.
I was kind of offended that she didn't come out, right? Because I was
Yeah.
just like, you're not gonna come say hi, right? And she's just like, Josh, give me a water, and I was like, we're here, like what the fuck.
Yeah, no, she had
um,
been feeling sick already, and like right before I hit you up to come over, I went out to go get her like Pepto and shit. I honestly thought it was also like food poisoning, but that whole time I kind of felt my stomach doing like weird shit too, and I was like, okay. And then I chalked it up to like maybe something I ate for breakfast because we had like avocado toast, and then we ate at her mom's house for lunch.
I've been eating better, I want to say, right? And like in doing that, I want to say that I thought I fucked my stomach up because I went and ate at TP's yesterday after like trying to like eat clean over the last couple of days.
Me throw that
Um
taco.
so but no, I feel it too much for it to just be like you ate heavy after eating light for a while. But I'm all right. I just like a little while ago, like I got that like weird feeling of like, oh dude, I feel like real fucking weak. Um and yeah, but I'm all right. I'm good.
So
If I
that's
pass out during the podcast, it'll be good
staying hydrated or what?
yeah, for sure. I don't have any water on me right now because I just finished it, but I have been. Let me
That's
share this shit and let's get it popping, bro. And I mean to get like a second win. And we're only doing this for like what, an hour. I should be
yeah.
fine.
Um,
Um,
so I was talking about the verdict in and of itself, and I think that there were some interesting things that surrounded the verdict as it was delivered. And we haven't really gotten to talk about this, you and I at least, because the times that we had talked about the Chauvin trial were not even like casting. We were just talking about it like off air or whatever.
right. I think we touched on it a little bit when we were doing what's it called? Is
Yeah,
it
sure.
Hot 7 Up? We were talking about it a little bit when we were doing the I was gonna say the Johnny cast, the cast at
Johnny
Draft House.
Yeah.
So I know we kind of got into it a little bit there, but yeah, I was listening to the podcast a little while ago, so I get like I know what you were saying right now. You're like feeling like a lot of it is I don't know. How do you feel about it? Let me get your take on it again.
I'm glad that there was finally an instance where an officer of the law is punished for his actions, where he takes someone's life.
Mm.
Albeit, I felt like there could have been better cases where that would have, you know, felt more like justice than this one. And I'll say so not because I don't think that the whole Floyd incident was like a huge injustice or whatever. Again, it's a tragic loss of human life unnecessarily, you know. And I just feel that like with the evidence that was presented, and with like the prosecution's own witnesses copying up to certain things, that at the bare minimum, I felt like at the absolute bare minimum, there was reasonable doubt enough to, like, if I think if I was on that jury, I may have gone with, like, I honestly don't think that there's enough evidence to 1000% prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he had the intention of ending his life. Just based on like what the witnesses were saying, from the doctor to the police chief to, I forget, I was mentioning it before and I didn't write any notes before we went into this, and I should have. But even so, one of the expert witnesses from the prosecution, an expert in like the use of force, I think, states in his fucking testimony that he felt that the knee behind on his neck or between the shoulder blades, because of the other camera angle or whatever, was not unnecessary use of force, or he felt like he could have done something that would have been more quote unquote forceful, or like a stronger show of force, if you will. And so I was like, well,
Right.
then wouldn't that just then destroy the argument that is being made, if the fucking expert witness that they're bringing on is saying that he didn't use deadly force, he could have used deadlier force or whatever? Isn't that just saying that he, then went like went quote unquote easy on him? Obviously, he fucking didn't, because the guy's
I
dead, right?
was I was genuinely surprised that he was guilty on all three counts.
I know.
I
I was
honestly
like,
was, and here's the thing. While I'm happy, that I do feel like justice was served to that extent. At the same time, I kind of feel like there's no way that is there's no way that this was an unbiased jury, right?
100%.
I mean, like in either way, or one way or the other. I don't feel like whether it was one way that they were like, yeah, he was murdered, or the other way that it was like, oh, he was on drugs and it was justified or whatever the fuck. Like I feel like in this whole, like, especially with how heavy it was last year, with how we were seeing like the I guess like the pinnacle of like the Black Lives Matter movement, and all of these instances of
Not
like,
even just like the Black Lives Matter movement, but Antifa as well.
okay, well, and Antifa, Proud Boys, whatever the fuck, the genesis of all, or not genesis, but the rearing of the heads of all of these different, like, groups, not organizations, but like groups that were coming in to combat each other, essentially, because we had a lot of instances of like
At
them
the
going against each
mercy,
other.
yeah, at the mercy of a lot of like mid to small size businesses, like, uh, local businesses and everything. At the
Oh,
mercy.
fuck off. All right. So I look, all right. I here's the thing. You're trying to like, corner it, right? Like
No, I'm not. I'm saying like
it definitely sounds
whatever
like that,
side.
because
I'm saying
what I'm
whatever
saying.
side it was, like there was definitely actions on both sides that caused a lot of structural damage or whatever the
Who
fuck.
gives a shit? The people died. Like, who gives a
That's,
shit?
that's
Honestly, like,
exactly.
property damage, big fucking deal, right? Like, it was more the fact that there was a dichotomy that was created out of this incident, and people were just like, hey, we just don't want people dying by cops anymore. Like, is that so hard to fucking ask? And then it turned into this conversation, which is like, yeah, but what about property? Who gives a shit? Like, nobody was saying anything when they were
But
ransacking.
again, dude, again, you can't have it both ways, because if you're saying that, then how are we also going to call people that rush the Capitol insurrectionists?
I was just making that point, but you were just, when we were talking about it the last time, you were saying, well, like, well, I mean, that's kind of justified, isn't it? Like, well, it's not. I understand it's both of it. Nobody's arguing that, like, hey, they should be able to burn everything down with, immunity, but at the same time, nobody's saying that cops should be able to do the same fucking thing about with lives, like, but whether whatever fucking side of the fence that you are, I think it's pretty fucking hard to ignore the huge disproportion in like the way that people, minorities specifically, get killed by cops. The data's been out there through fucking FBI statistics for so long. Like, and if you want to try to twist it as much as you can to fit your narrative, then sure. But if you're just kind of viewing it objectively, I don't think that's a conclusion you can um you know distort. Sorry, but that's just my view. So I think like we're not even talking property, dude. Like we're not. We're talking about like the political social awareness that's been like coming from this. Yeah. Like, we don't even have to make it a conversation about that, regardless of where we've been, right, over the last year. My point is that I don't think the jury's like, oh man, but what about all those buildings that were burnt? No, right? They're thinking, if anything, what they were thinking was, how did this lead to this? What kind of data is shown, right? Like, what is it that spurred these fucking movements on? It wasn't like, hey, we want to go burn down buildings now. Like, it was more about like, hey, in especially in a society where they place so much fucking value on property damage, on property in general, and on like the way that people make their money, right? I don't think it was a conversation that needed to be had about like, oh man, but they're doing this, you know. So all right, let me see. You're sending me something.
Yeah,
Hang on a
I'm
second.
using my laptop right now, so I couldn't just bring it up right away.
I keep talking while I'm pulling it up because it's taking a while to open.
Okay. You know, I just
So you're sending me, and I know what you're gonna say from this. I'm already.
I
I'm already
only brought it up because that's I've been looking. I'm not disagreeing or trying to minimize anything at all, but that's literally just what I was able to find.
okay. So when
I'm
you're
not
looking at
trying to
this
exaggeration.
immediately, right? Like, all right, I'll let you say your piece, right? Because you wanted to talk about this. So let's hear it.
My piece is this: the mass incidences, or the think about it this way: every fucking day there is interactions with cops that are benign. Millions and millions and millions and millions of interactions with cops that are benign, right? And nobody talks about them. Nobody records the one cop that is like, oh, you know what, dude, here's your warning, bye. And nobody blows that up or anything.
Well, that's because
And
it's a normal fucking interaction. Why are we even
what I'm
talking
saying,
about
so
that?
like by and large, the large most of the interactions with cops across the country are normal. Well, do you think that would be a factual statement or a fair statement or no?
Uh, okay.
Like
So
every
it's
day.
it's kind of a loaded question, isn't it? Like
Would you say so? I don't know. I mean,
I don't think it's normal that a lot of places are over policed and that they're put in those kind of, not necessarily normal interactions, but interactions where they're being, you know, uh, sought out because of like prejudice or whatever the fuck it might be. Like, I don't think that's normal. I don't think the budgets that we spend, especially here in a place where we have 70% of poverty rate, that we have a fucking, insane, budget, you
fucking
know.
like insane militarized vehicles and
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I mean. I don't think that's normal.
neither do I, and I'm not for the police state whatsoever, and that's not the argument I was trying to make. But on that note, from like going back to a couple of years ago, do you remember the whole campaign of like why they changed the cop cars here in Laredo from like blue and white to like black and white?
I don't want.
They did that to seem more intimidating, or in, intimidate more, like the people that they were policing or whatever. And I forgot, it was kind of like the whole thing when it happened. I think it was like back when we were in high school, more or less, is when they started phasing out the white and blue cruisers and implementing the black and white ones. And I've never ever been for the police state, but I don't think that there is an accurate picture that is painted when you highlight such a small amount of, and I'm not saying that it's just either, but I'm only making the argument that I'm not for defund the police per se, or at least tell me what you mean by that. You know what I mean? Be more clear about what you mean by that. Because I would prefer to have a police force that is trained more to handle high stress situations so that there's less of a margin for death on either side. You know what I mean? Because it's kind of, it's a fucking hard job to, if when you think about it. Again, by and large, most of the interactions that people will have with cops are going to be uneventful. Maybe not the most polite interactions per se, but in comparison to the ones that will end in death versus all of the ones that don't, it's a small amount, right?
Okay. I mean, Okay, repeat that last statement again, real quick.
I would rather have a more trained police force that has better training, whatever the fuck that means, right? Like there's experts out there that can do that, right? Like the people that work in the military, for example, that handle high stress situations all the fucking time, like the cream of the crop military or whatever, right? I would rather have them more trained in so where they can handle situations that are high in stress that can minimize the margin for loss of life on either side, whether it's a
I
cop
mean,
or
so there are instances in like in metropolitan areas um where they have mental health experts who are in charge of policing people, especially when it's like, oh, a lot of these interactions, maybe the ones that you're talking about too, that end up in people being incarcerated or whatever it might be without incident. A lot of the times they're going and they're showing up because people are experiencing a breakdown, a crisis, whatever it might be, something that like a normal person wouldn't do, right? A law-abiding citizen wouldn't do. Traffic stops, I still think are bullshit, honestly, but I get it, I understand that. But in other places that are essentially like more modernized, I'd say what they're working for is implementing some form of like community-based alternative, right? It's the same thing that we're working towards when we're doing like immigration work, right? Like a lot of the immigration work that we're doing right now, as a matter of fact, is working towards creating a community-based alternative to detention right now. And yeah, I don't agree with Democrats and anything like that in the way that they're normalizing this shit, right? Because I think
detention
by
centers.
far, yeah, detention centers,
For sure.
detention center or overflow centers, fucking, whatever, like I
We
think
can go into the topic of like the whole border crisis and everything.
I mean, I don't like I know this is going to be not a heavy episode, but it wasn't going to be like a light one either. But I feel like I've said like a lot about what I need to say on that already on that note. But I will say this, like, uh, a majority of like the things that happen when we're talking about a majority of incidents that come up that we do see are things that are usually like, what did I say last time? I told you this the last time. Look, when you have like what is shown as like a crisis, right? Whatever it might be, where are they getting those numbers from? Did we talk about this the last time? I don't even remember.
No, we didn't get a chance to.
Okay, cool. So where are they getting those numbers from? Right? They're getting numbers from like the DHS, from FBI, whatever. Do you know the history about the DHS by any chance?
Department of Homeland Security started
Yeah.
after the terror attacks or whatever.
Right, exactly. And the majority of, or not a majority of, but their main goal was to do what? Capture terrorists, right? Deter terrorists, to stop them before any sort of domestic terror attack happened. Or any foreign attack, any foreign terrorists showed up to attack. That how many did they foil? Fucking zero, right? There was maybe, yeah, sure, if you're gonna nitpick, you can find
I mean, they
incidents.
foiled the ones that they funded.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. Right.
Look at that if you want, but like that's fucking wild.
Hang on a second.
And I think that was the FBI, if I'm not mistaken, the one that I'm thinking about too, where I don't know if you recall, but like a couple of years back, there was someone that was in Times Square with like bombs and shit, and they caught him. And then it turns out they like set the whole situation up, essentially.
Right. So the point that I had made before though was this, like, DHS, I think, and I actually I would die on this hill, an inherently racist agency, right? The reason why I say that is because what started, and a lot of people won't fucking, they don't know this shit, but what started as a plot, or not a plot, but a plan to, okay, let's reel it back a little bit here, because we're kind of jumping around a bit.
But
so when Bush was in office, right, he was actually the one that was saying shit like, we don't build walls, we build bridges. Walls are for scared people. That was actually, if I'm paraphrasing, but if I could pull it up,
something to that effect.
Bush quote on walls. Shit, what the fuck? Whatever, I can't find it. I got some weird shit. It says bathroom rules: wash your hands, brush your teeth. Okay, hang on a second. W. It's not coming up. I'll show you right now. I'll look for it later. Well, when we're looking through something else. So his whole thing was that he was like, yeah, we don't want that, right? We don't want to continue with that with building walls. We think that's something that scared people do, right? But the fact of the matter is, when 9/11 happened, we knew every piece of information that we needed to know to stop that. The issue was that there wasn't enough intergovernmental communication for them to say, oh, we could have pieced all of this shit together. Because guess what? Every single plane ticket that was bought, they were bought on the same fucking credit card. All the people that showed up here, they were here legally. They were all at the same flight school, like that kind of shit.
There's a take on it to where it wasn't necessarily, hey, we didn't have enough intergovernmental communication to stop it, but rather like willful ignorance of it. Because this is something that you can find with I think her name is Abby Martin. She has a YouTube channel called The Empire Files, where she interviews one of the people that ran the NSA at the time before the 9/11 attacks happened. And they had already had the technology that Edward Snowden revealed. So they essentially knew what was going on and did nothing. And it's like a former director of the NSA that she's interviewing saying this. It's on YouTube. I remember listening to that and being like, the fuck? Why is this not like mainstream news? But yeah, I think it is Abby Martin. I don't remember. Empire Files, YouTube. Look that up. That interview's there. It's fucking insane. Blew my mind. But anyways, keep going. That's conspiracy.
No. I mean, so in that vein though, like what they were saying was that there wasn't enough communication between everything to piece all these things together, right? Because at the end of the day, once they started looking, it was like, oh, it's pretty obvious whether it was fucking planted or not, right? So then the whole plan was, okay, so we're gonna develop this agency that's gonna have all these different heads, which was ICE, BP, whatever the fuck, customs, all that shit. It was all going to be under the same area. And with these monitoring agencies, what they were going to do is they were going to set up to kind of deter terrorism, right? So yeah, they did. That's the whole point that we're making. That this was. So anyway, as far as our kind of driving point on that was, how did the shift happen from focusing on foreign terrorism, right? Or terrorist attacks on our soil, right? How did it shift from that to immigrants? And a lot of that ended up being that they were just like, you know what, we're just not foiling enough plots, right? And a lot of that shifted over into this like and I'm not trying to discredit either side, or actually I'm going at both sides, because Democrats were kind of saying the same shit, right? Around 2006, they were like, we should build a wall, right? And they were saying the same thing. So it was like something like the Secure Fence Act of 2006 or some bullshit. But they were the ones who were also like, yeah, we should build it, and because we need to protect our land. That paranoia, it ended up like kind of turning everything into a whole conversation about who needs to do what and like why we need to worry about people getting in here legally. And it was just kind of a dumb fucking conversation. So now let's just say if you have somebody like fucking Biden and he's getting information about like what illegal border crossings there are, who's getting information from what's happening, to get an actual narrative or a picture of what's happening, you don't just fucking go to one person, right? A lot of the information that they're getting is going to be what? DHS, right? All that information here. One of the conversations I had this last weekend when I was up in, when I was up in Austin, we were, one of the conversations I was having with somebody was like, hey, how's the crisis down there, man? You being affected by it? And I was like, not at all. Like my days are more normal than ever. Like, I mean, I'm getting back out and doing shit, whatever. I'm not, I went across not that long ago, like just to go like, say hi. Like it's not nothing, So, their whole thing, they were just kind of like surprised. They were like, well, you're from Laredo, right? I'm like, yeah, one of the battleground cities supposedly, right? But no, we're not being fucking
Deleted or anything.
Yeah, if we're talking about, yeah, there's no real left. Sure, yeah, this is I agree with that. There's no real left because all of the leftists have bought in to being that whole like liberal woke bullshit, right? That you like quoting all the time. Um but they hey, your camera looks like shit, by the way. Are you on a different laptop?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was wondering. I was like, you look so different. You look like you look foggy right now. But yeah, so that's my point. And so instead of going and talking to like community-based organizations like the ones that I'm involved in, right? Like you want to get a capture of like what's happening. You don't just go and talk to the people that are in charge of enforcing the shit. The people who are in charge of the people who get fucking paid by that organization, right? Like especially people who want to manufacture like a crisis, they can get more fucking funding. A lot of the stuff that's happening right now is so Biden apparently not too long ago he just approved some funding for amnesty programs and more overflow shelters. And I think it's bullshit that we're like accepting that narrative. Um, I 100% agree with the people who are like, oh yeah, now it's a whole conversation about just because we don't have an orange man saying mean shit on Twitter or whatever. No. I still fuck Donald Trump and fuck Joe Biden. I think they're both shit, right? And I never wanted to vote for either of them. But
Yep.
in the scheme of things, I don't like doing lesser evil shit. In the scheme of things, I think they're both fucking trash. So
Yep.
So yeah, but that's just where it's at. I think if they want to get an actual like, because there's so many fucking organizations, you have no fucking clue. There's so many people that we've networked with that are like day after day, my fucking inbox is just flooded with like, hey, here's a daily report about what's happening today, and it's almost like opening a newspaper that's solely about border crisis, right? Or a border crisis, right? Like that's the only that's like my source, right? Like because I see these people, they're doing the boots on the ground, where they're doing the monitoring work, right? The monitoring work is not stuff, because you'll see like, let's just say instances inside of these detention centers, right? They're still run by what I think is fucking the worst thing, because they're for-profit prisons. They're private facilities that are making money off of each head that's inside of a bed there. As a matter of fact, they don't even call them people, they just call them beds, right? They to say how much capacity they have, and we have 472 beds, 80% of them which have heads in them. Like that's it. Like that's how they address it, and they get money or funding based on how many people are incarcerated there. I couldn't tell you how many times we've been part of like a rally or a media campaign that's been about people who have been in detention for a ridiculously long time. A lot of these things, what they'll say is like, oh yeah, no, everything runs like clockwork, right? Matter of fact, people get out of here a lot quicker than other places up north. Fuck no, that's not true. We had somebody that was down here who was incarcerated for detained, right? Because legally they can't say incarcerated because that's wrongful imprisonment, right? To have them, incarcerated or detained for so long. So a lot of people don't know this, but that like the little way they get around that is that, hey, guess what? If you are deemed to be violating whatever sort of immigration law there is, we can keep you detained for as long as we need to, because our system is backed up to the point where we don't even have to sentence you until we find it convenient for us. So that whole instance of like, oh, we're just going to profit off of you for like, we're not going to give you any sort of amnesty or probation or anything, because realistically at that point, what would you do if you were like a sensible person running something like that? You'd say, hey, you're on parole, right? Like you got to go do your shit, whatever the fuck you need to do, make money, prepare for the legal battle, and when it's time to like actually run your trial, then we can call you back. But no, instead it's like, hey, you're gonna sit your ass in here for 3 years until we decide what to do to you. And it's as simple as when we do these sort of campaigns, what we do is we fucking, dude, I'm just saying it sometimes makes it feel like such a fucking dystopian like thing to happen, but
it's not really real.
dude, so you know what works, or what's the most effective thing?
What?
Twitter.
Really?
If you so I'm not going to get too much into details because I know a lot of the information is confidential, but if you go to the place that I work for, if you go to their Instagram or their Facebook page or Twitter or whatever it might be, and you see they do little snapshots. The people that we network with, they do snapshots of how much our tweets are like circulated, right? So if we're saying we're tweeting at ICE, we're tweeting at DHS, we're tweeting at Joe Biden, we're tweeting at Colonel whatever the fuck his name is, who's the chief of the Bureau of Prisons, and all these people, we're tweeting at them saying, hey, this person has been detained for more than your 60 days, more than your 40 days. They've been in there for, and then we put whatever number that is and counting. Right. When are you gonna fucking let them go? Right. Like, we don't say it like that, but it's like, when are you gonna let them leave? They've been separated from their family. They're elderly, as a matter of fact. They're over 60 years old, right? And at the same time, like, they're inside of an area which would be disastrous to catch COVID in, right? So we send that out, and guess what? We start catching attention, and once that catches attention, they're like, oh shit, now we got to do something about it. So at the same time, while we're doing what's called a Twitter storm, we're phone banking. So we're calling this place over and over. One of the times I ended up calling the field office, right? Because that's one of the numbers that they give us to phone bank. When I called, they answered, and they're like, yeah, how can I help you? And I was like, I'm calling about this case, whatever. And we have a script that we usually follow.
Right.
And when I start telling them, like, I'm calling about so and so, this is what's going on, they're just like, okay, bye. But boom, hang up. Or they'll say, look, I can't go over everything that you just finished telling me. Do you have any information yourself that you would like to speak about? Who are you? Do you have a G28? Are you any sort of legal representation, that kind of stuff? And I was like, hi, my name is, and then I start saying, like, my name is William, and I start repeating the whole fucking thing again. And then they're like, okay, great. And they just hang up, right? So then I got a call back. Somebody called me back because I left like 15 messages. Somebody called me back, and I answer, and they're like, who is this? Is this so and so? And they said the name of the attorney for the person who's representing that person who's detained. And I was like, no, I can give you their phone number though. Don't hang up. And I get their phone number, give it to them. They call. Guess what? By the end of the fucking day, bro, he got released. That person got released. Something they could have done a lot earlier, maybe possibly like fucking 40, 30 days in, like they could have done, but they don't, right? Because it's not convenient for them, right? Especially here in Laredo, like, we can get in this conversation.
And are like these detention centers, they're staffed with like private employees, or
they're staffed. So, dude, and then this is another conversation. The easiest way to get people to police the easiest way to police to police a populace is to have them police themselves, right? Do you understand that? Like, you've heard that quote? Okay, so that, yeah. So what's one of the quickest ways here, and I know because a shit ton of my friends have done that, right? What's one of the quickest ways here? Nobody's saying fucking defund the firemen, right? Like, that's not a conversation that's happening. But what's one of the quickest ways that they kind of dangle in front of you? Like, hey, we have recruiters that come in to make you a cop. There's not necessarily a lot of honor behind that profession now, I feel. So that, like, not my own view, but I feel like that conversation that happens, or that perspective that's happening right now, that's kind of the general attitude towards it right now. They are they're giving them an area where it's like 70% poverty rate, right? You have that going on here, and then we have an ultra like militarized. We have fucking tanks that we've only ever used for parades, dude. Like, it's like that's pretty fucking bizarre, really ridiculous when you put it in the scope of things. Because what are we gonna fucking use those things for, honestly? So yeah, I lost my train of thought, but that's basically it. Like, these people are just regular fucking people who are like, oh, hey, what's one of the better paying jobs here? I think it's like oil, enforcement, police. Like, that's usually it. So you work with the Geo group. The fucking Cuellar's, they have like a fucking dynasty going on there, right? You got the two brothers that live in the same fucking neighborhood, or one of them who's always flying out to DC, doesn't really fucking live here. You have all these people who are so detached from the actual problem because they just aren't viewing it in the scope. They're not viewing it the same way you and I do.
they're just seeing dollar signs? That's fucking wild, man. I
100%.
think that's like one of the biggest issues with not even just here, but anywhere in the country where like trying to get anything done, if there isn't the right amount of dollar signs next to it, then ain't nothing gonna happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, that's just the way I feel. And I hate having this conversation because I have it so often, but there's,
And it always
I've,
feels so defeating or
huh?
deflating. It always
Yeah,
feels
it is honestly, it's very disheartening because you have this conversation with people where they should feel like, oh, like what can I do? And I'm like, I don't know, man. You want to sign up to be a volunteer for my visitation program? We could do that, right? Like I can guide you, whatever, but it's not work for everybody. Like I feel in the same way that people always say, like, oh yeah, like police work and enforcement work, it's real tough because you have to see all these people who are caged up like animals and police them every day, right? At the same time, it's like, yeah, what about the people that are like not getting paid to do it, right? Like we're going over there to see these people, to have them. I mean, the number one request that I always get whenever we're working in these areas are like, hey, can you connect me to my family? I want to know if like they're still alive. It's pretty rough. It's tough work.
for sure.
Um, but yeah,
I think to kind of pivot to like just the closing segment on here and encapsulate the episode, the Derek Chauvin trial, definitely the verdict was not necessarily the outcome that I expected, but I think that it does set a standard and sends a message to other officers that may have nefarious intents or whatever.
that that was my point. I mean, one, I think it's actually the opposite. I don't think people are going to be like, oh, hey, there's consequences to murdering people finally. Like, no, the shit's always existed. You can't just kill people,
Yeah,
right?
no,
Like it's but and I don't think this will necessarily change all that much. By the way, big fuck you to Nancy Pelosi for the bullshit that she said when she was like doing like, oh, thank you, George Floyd, for sacrificing your life. Fucking the stupidest shit I've ever fucking
yeah,
heard. Like it wasn't even a, it
fucking
was, the dude was snubbed out in the streets, bro. Like that's not a,
it's not a way to go. Like,
yeah, it's not like it, so, and then not only that, but like the mere fact that like these whole, what's the word, the bleeding hearts politics, I fucking hate that shit. Like whenever they're doing something, they're not doing it out of like faith, good faith, or like an actual sort of like progressive stance. No, they're doing it because it's like the cameras are on me and I need to kneel down and
and
like fucking,
they're
it's so
state of
fucking dumb.
re-election,
Sorry, what?
in a constant state of like re-election.
Wait, wasn't she gonna fucking retire too? Like, like I thought she was already supposed to be out of it.
She's like, and I'm referring to just politicians across the board, but
Sure.
the fucking cycle never stops, man.
Yeah, I think I mean I don't necessarily, I have kind of a bleak outlook on like the state of like politics in that area, which is why I don't really like talking about it all that much, because I don't think we're much more improved from last year than we are now. I think, as a matter of fact, we're on this area where there isn't going to be a chance for like the country to heal. I think now we're already focused on a bunch of other instances of like getting back to work, right, while trying at the same time to maintain yeah, sure, we're trying to maintain uh like our sanity in this whole fucking thing. Like it's just it's I don't know. I feel like if you're not upset, like you're not paying attention. Like I just kind of, that's the way
Right.
I've always felt.
At any number of things.
Yeah, on
Easily
either side, honestly. Like the people who I see the most unbothered are generally the people who I see are the most insincere about shit, or the ones who've got like the least amount of sympathy or empathy with people. So they lack scope. And that's just, I mean, I'm not saying here that I'm like, oh, hey, I'm super inclusive, I've got all the diversity stuff, I have the fucking playbook. Like I 100% no, I say some dumb shit sometimes too, I laugh at dumb shit too, and like it's human nature. But I think it's a constant state of like holding myself accountable about that shit that'll kind of set me apart from somebody else who's just like, it is what it is, like tough shit. I don't know, but that's just kind of my view on that.
Well, god damn it, dude. Let's end it there before we fucking go down even an even darker
I'd
road.
like to end it on a lighter note at some point, or
Yeah, that's what I was about to get into, to where if you want to laugh and not feel sad, then tomorrow night would be the perfect night to do so, because there's an open mic at Cultura Beer Garden called
yes,
Mic Drop.
The mic drop will be tomorrow at Cultura Beer Garden, and ended on me, bro. Um, yeah, on the main. Oh, you know what? I was remembering a story, and I'll tell this story. This will be my outro story.
But
It's about the Mank. So in here, so Mikey, as you know, the Mank, as you know him, he's a very tall, lanky dude. Yeah.
yeah,
You seen him? He's got the reach of a fucking a monster, bro. Like he's got a 6 foot reach for sure, right? So like it's one time we were in Nichols's house. We used to stay there for days on end during the summer. It was like I fucking lived there, right? And so Mikey and I and Nichols would always just hang around, play video games, eat junk food, watch movies, and like that was our whole thing, right? Skate sometimes too. And I remember, so Nichols had his bed up against the wall, kind of like similar to mine back here, right? And with Nichols, Mikey had this like habit where he would like jump and do flips on the fucking bed and shit, and like pretend to like kick stuff or whatever. At one point, he did a flip and his fucking foot went straight to the wall.
God damn it.
And you think it's bad like that, right? He's just like it goes straight through, and it went in like at an angle, right? So you'd think, oh shit, that's already pretty bad. There's a hole in my wall.
Yeah.
And then he fucking yanks his foot out, and he fucking just the wall just opens up like like that from where his foot was. Oh my god, this shit was fucking funny. He gutted his wall.
Destroyer of walls, dude.
The destroyer
Bring
of
Mikey down
walls,
to the
bro.
fucking border.
We didn't have him on an episode, dude. We didn't do another drunk cast, maybe even a remote one.
Perhaps, we do like a nice little beer tasting. So for next week on Monday, we'll be live with Gabe Rodriguez from Por Vida Tattoos at the Por Vida shop. We're gonna
Oh
do
no
it
shit. Cool.
Yeah, we're gonna do it a little bit later, and I was actually gonna message you a little bit earlier about that, but we're gonna do it a little bit later than usual, likely closer to 8:30, 8:45, maybe
Do
even.
I get tattooed on the
Oh, that'd
thing
be
or
cool
what?
as fuck. I don't know, do like a little thing on it.
I've been meaning to, man. I've been telling people like I kind of want
We're
to
already
get like
there. Let's
dang.
strap you in, and then for part of the cast, you're in there, or we do it pre-cast, and then
Are we? How about we get some matching tattoos, bro? Are you
about that.
no? What? Come on, dude. A little alien, dude.
On
Just a
the
little an alien or a little UFO.
Also our cooking show, fucking Aliens in the Kitchen, is coming soon.
It's aliens on the butter. I'm never gonna fucking call it aliens in the kitchen. It's aliens on the butter. I refuse to call it anything else.
But yeah, dude, Instagram, Facebook, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all of that shit. At AOTB cast on everything. Also Roger's podcast is almost out. When can we expect
You
that?
talking about the lockdown listens?
Yes.
I'm aiming for Friday, so we'll see. I already the thing is that I can't figure out how to record. Well, I know I figured it out, but I need to get the actual fucking part to
Okay.
to record this. But I have that, and I have something else that I've been working on that I'm pretty fucking excited about. So we'll see that. We'll see that pretty soon. Another podcast coming out that we're gonna work on. So
Go
yeah.
follow us on our Instagram, and we have our link tree up on there where you can go to all the other podcasts that are part of the network. That's just my opinion. Beans, Brews, and Buds, the Lockdown Listen, and On the Streets of Laredo. We love you guys. We'll see you on Monday.
Also, quick shout out to Nosy podcast too.
Oh, yeah.
Josh was a guest on the one of the more recent episodes. And it was actually very genuine.
I was trying to have Orly on today to kind of have him just kind of be on and talk about where he was and where he is now. But we kind of did on the episode there. So if you
definitely take a listen. I listen to a couple of podcasts, especially like my friends' podcasts as much as they can. I was on an episode of Beans and Beans, but also I listened to the Orly and Josh episode of Nosy. And it was a very genuine conversation. It was fun to hear it because it was like something like you don't normally hear Josh talk that way. So it's a good listen, honestly. Go and check it out.
We love you, everybody. We'll see you on Monday. Bye.
Us.